Howdy, eco farmers. Welcome to the Acres U.S.A. podcast, a conversational podcast where we will explore sustainable farming, real world regenerative practices, and the latest innovations and technology shaping the future of ecological agriculture with some of your favorite farmers and ranchers. This episode of the podcast is proudly supported by Azure Standard and American Farmland Trust, two organizations that are deeply committed to strengthening farms, building healthier food systems, and promoting land stewardship across the country. I'm your host, Taylor Henry, the owner and CEO of Acres U.S.A. Now let's get into today's conversation. Today I'm joined by JR Burdick, an 11th generation dairy farmer from Missouri and the owner of Nourishing Family Farm. JR has made the rare transition from conventional commodity dairy into a direct-to-consumer regenerative food business built around raw milk, stewardship, and rebuilding rural resilience. He's a deeply thoughtful voice in agriculture, known for his emphasis on local markets and the belief that we can't just practice our way into prosperity. Small farms have to generate real income if we want families and communities to return to rural America. This is a conversation about an example of what it will take to revive the small farm economy from the ground up. All right, we are joined on the Acres U.S.A. podcast with JR Burdick, a farmer and rancher from Missouri who does a lot of direct-to-consumer sales. JR has a nice following and is very active on Twitter. If you guys are ever on X or Twitter, that's the place that I found JR. I've been following him for quite a while. Has a good angle on economics and helping solve the problem. He's living and breathing solving the problem of how we can make profitable farms in 2026 and beyond. So welcome to the Acres USA podcast, JR. Appreciate you for joining us.
Hey, Taylor, thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I guess first of all, how's the weather down there? Did you guys get a bunch of ice, or you guys have a pretty good winter going, or?
We didn't have the ice storm. We got about 8 inches of snow a little over 10 days ago or so, and just extremely cold temperatures for northern Missouri. And so that's presented its own challenges of keeping waters going and taking care of cattle and all the things that go along with cold weather. But yeah, we didn't have any power outages or any issues like that. It was just been I think our coldest day was about 20 below, and then today I think we're supposed to hit 50. So those wild swings, you kind of got to watch them and take a little care for all the livestock in that.
I always look at Missouri as I'm a little bit jealous of it. I kind of think it's one of the premier climates for grazing because it gets cold enough where you kill the pests and some of the issues that folks in warmer climates have, but then you stay warm enough throughout the winter where you guys can, actually stay out on pasture. You probably deal with a little bit more mud than us. Like we haven't seen mud in, a month or over a month. So I know there's other challenges that you guys have, but
yep.
I am jealous. I am jealous how deep you guys bury your water lines. We're 6 to 8 feet here. So there is any water line that goes in the ground is not a little, you can't just bring a trencher in and put it in.
Right. Yeah. Yep. No, we've actually had not a lot of mud because we've been fairly dry. So we were grateful for the snow that we got to get some moisture in here, and we'll see what happens as we go through the summer here.
Yeah, well, you'll probably get some mud today after 8 inches of snow and it being 50 degrees.
Yep.
How do you describe your operation? Like, what do you guys, I know you sell protein and then dairy and on direct consumer sales, but do you have pigs right now in the winter? Or are you just doing that in the summer, or chickens?
We have pigs. We farrow twice a year. So we should be starting to farrow pigs here first or second week of March. And then we shoot for October to have our second farrowing of the year. So we do that. I mean, we could kind of go year round, but that just works for our system. And they're all pasture based. My upbringing was in a dairy farm. I was not a hog farmer. So when we started to go direct to consumer sales, we were looking for an outlet for our excess milk and our milk byproducts. And it just made sense to me. Hey, get some hogs and we can slop the hogs like Grandpa used to do. So we bought 3 gilts and a boar. And well, nature won, and now we have more gilts and more hogs than we started with. And so I don't consider myself a very good hog farmer. I just am kind of like, you guys got to figure this out. I'll feed you, I'll water you, you better live, and we give you some bedding and some shelter, and I say that in kind of tongue in cheek, but that has grown and is becoming a bigger part of our business, uh, and has outgrown. Now we don't have enough just waste milk to feed them. We have to go into the corn fed diets and the different things like that. So, but we bought just some generic sows or gilts actually, and then I bought a red wattle boar that I breed everything with because I try to go to more heritage breeds of things that I'm doing. So, you know, getting back to your original question of how do I describe myself, I kind of was that commercial dairyman that shot for the maximum milk production and that maximum efficiency model that everybody talks about. And then in 2022, through some things, I just got really disillusioned with where our industry was going, and uh, we just couldn't. We got to a kind of butted heads with our dairy co-op, and we both agreed that we should leave, and so we left, and took about 6 months to figure out what are we going to do, because I love dairy farming, and so we went this route, and in July of 2023 we sold our first milk to our first customer, and have been on a steep learning curve about customer relations, about regenerative agriculture, um, shifting through all of the what everybody considers known knowledge, and finding out that there's a lot of people in this space that are just YouTube farmers, and finding a way to get into the real world, connect with our customers, find out what they want, which isn't always what they think they want. You have to kind of educate them a little bit. But then there's also the random person who just heard a YouTube video and heard a snippet, and you've got to kind of bring them back to, hey, this is reality. This is how this works. And so I tell everybody I farm the way my great grandpa did, and my grandpa did back in the 50s. So we're a diversified operation. Dairy is our mainstay. And then everything that we do, like I mentioned, the hogs came out of the desire to have a place for our waste milk, and then we can stick them in the woods. That's where we keep them 9 months out of the year. This time, when it's colder, we bring them up closer to the buildings. It's easier to keep them watered and that type of thing, but they're still out on dirt. And then we were fooling around with everything, and I said, hey, we've got to have bedding. So I was going to plant oats and wheat for the straw. I didn't really care about the grain too much. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, I've got this online store. I've got these customers. My wife has always ground her own flour for 20 plus years now. So I said, well, let's start doing some heritage wheat products and selling those wheat berries. So we last year we planted some turkey red wheat, and we've started. We harvested it. Only planted about 4 or 5 acres of it. Started the process of cleaning and storage. All the stuff you got to go through packaging, and we've started selling that as well. And now we have customers that want us to plant some spring wheats, and so it all ties together because we needed the bedding, we needed a place to go with manure in the summer, all those types of things. So everything we do, it started with the dairy, but then all those things built on one another. So it's not what people would look at it and say, well, you diversified. And I say, no, we just built the system. Everything is
Yeah.
interdependent upon the other thing. It's not its own special entity. but it's required to make the whole system work. And I think that's what Grandpa did, 75, 80 years ago.
Well, and like the old, what was, Grandpa's theory on having hogs back in the day was they were called what, mortgage, what they call them, mortgage payers or mortgage
Mortgage
carriers or something,
lifters.
mortgage
Yeah.
lifters. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if you have the direct to consumer model, that's still true. Everyone you talk to that does direct to consumer, they're always happy and surprised by the value that a pig brings. The only problem is, you don't really don't necessarily have the backup plan. But with you farrowing, do you sell a portion of them as, feeder pigs, or are you carrying everything all the way through?
So far, I've carried everything through. I think this spring we'll have the most sows farrowing that we have, sows and gilts. So we may have some feeder pigs available this spring, but that hasn't been part of my income stream in the past.
Yeah, I always think we've done it before. We've bought feeder pigs, and then you get them to where you make sure they're not wormy, and get them trained initially to some electric fence, and then sell 2, 3, 4 to homesteaders at a pretty good profit. That could be a decent. I mean, you don't want to. It's like your customers who are buying the pork might say, I want a pig myself to raise, and then until they do it and kind of figure out what all it entails.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there could be a decent market if you have enough kind of little homesteaders around to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and the issue with pork production is when you start to sell cuts of meat, and it's sort of the same in beef production, but people have this desire. So in the summer, I want steak and I want brisket, or these types of things, and it's the same in the pork industry. Everybody wants bacon. Well, you only get so much bacon out of a pig, and you got a lot of the rest of the pig you got to deal with. So you've got to find ways to entice customers to buy those other cuts. And so we've got a couple of different processors that we go through that are USDA inspected, where we can get good brats made, good pork burger, and you never have trouble selling the bacon. It's all the rest of it that you got to move. And I just had a phone call yesterday it was out of the blue, from a restaurant nearby who wants to buy pork shoulders from me. And I was like, well, we're in the beginning stages of that. And again, they wanted to have pasture heritage breeds, so they're not looking for that conventional animal that everybody produces right now. And I says, okay. And he said, well, so we just had this conversation yesterday. We've got to work through some things. But my first thought is, okay, you want to buy pork shoulders and some bellies. I've got to find a home for the rest of that pig. Right. And I've got to sell this at a rate. One of the things that we do a poor job in direct to consumer is we've gotten so used to, as farmers, being price takers. We don't know how to set our price. And so we always go to, because we've been trained to think in terms of cost savings. Everything we do in agriculture is, how can I produce this for less? So you're always, how can I do this acre of corn for less? How can I make this gallon of milk for less? But when you go into direct to consumer, you have to figure out how to charge so that you're viable, so that you can be here in the future. And you can't be here competing with Walmart. You have to compete with your cost structure. And then you have to find people that are willing to pay what you need. So for example, we sold in December, we sold a batch of hogs. We got $7.50 a hanging weight for it. And everybody goes, oh, I can't believe you charge people that. And I'm like, well, we feed them a little longer. We don't have the advantage of, that controlled environment, and we're not feeding them antibiotics and growth promoters. So it takes longer. You don't make a turn in 8 months. It takes 12 to 13 months for me to get a hog up to, 300 pounds or so. So I've got a lot of time invested in that. I've got land invested in that. I've got infrastructure invested in that. And then I can't sell 10,000 hogs. I'm going to be really lucky if I sell 75 this year. Well, if I get $1,000 a hog, I've made $75,000. You know, to the homesteader, that sounds like a lot of money, but I'm paying for 98 acres of farmland here in Missouri. I'm taking care of my wife and me and paying our health insurance and paying the insurance on the farm and the taxes. And you've got to have $350,000 to $400,000 of gross revenue to really make a farm be profitable if you have any debt at all. Well, you gotta pay enough, and there's only so many hours in a day. You can't work hard enough to overcome and scale that so that you can have enough, of volume to overcome your cost structure. So you have to get it out of your pig, and you have to get it out of your gallon of milk, and you have to consider all of the costs that you've done to get that pig to market. And we don't do that well in the direct to consumer. We always think about, I hear from people, well, don't you feel bad because people are struggling? I'm like, well, I understand. I'm struggling too. I have to take care of me, and I have to be here so that my customers have a opportunity to buy farm fresh products in the future. If I price myself at the Walmart price, I price myself out of business. I won't be in business to keep those people
Well, and like
nourished.
they, it's not for everyone. You're talking about 75 hogs in a scale of millions of hogs that can be ran through Walmart, and folks have that option. It is, I think it is just, it's a never winning battle to even enter into, how dare you charge that much conversation. I mean, most of the time these are people that they're like 1%. They're not your customers. It's not even really worth even
Mm-hmm.
the conversation of it. But
Mm-hmm.
if you reverse engineer the people that paid $7.50 a pound hanging weight with those hogs, what do you think made the difference? Was it the fact that you were able to, because to me it's always you're able to communicate the value to the person buying the product.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
then there is that person for whatever reason is willing to pay more money for a different type of product. They have access to the same options as everyone else, but for some reason you communicated an appropriate value that both people are happy with. So how'd you come about that relationship with that person?
Well, that's the key word. You build a relationship. So you build a customer base with a product. We used milk that was brought people to us who had health concerns, who had um, desires for better, healthier products, and I got to give a lot of credit to RFK Jr. He has pushed that, and people are aware of it now more than they have been in the past. And I think also we have a lot of customers who just want to ensure. The pandemic really scared some folks, like what happens when the supply chains do fail, and they want to have another option. And so we've tapped into those two things, and you build a relationship. People want to do business with me. They don't have to, and I understand that. And so for me, it's an honor, and I want to price products so that it's competitive, so that I make money, but so that they get value out of it. And then that's the other thing you mentioned. You have to express to them, what is the value of this? What is the value of having a whole hog in your freezer? You don't know what inflation is going to do. You don't know what the supply chains are going to do, but now you have some security there. And that's where having conversations brings about those opportunities, and it gives them some skin in the game. They really feel like, when you tell them, hey, I'm taking this hog to this butcher, you get to tell them, how do you want it cut? What do you want to have, size, portions, whatever. And we had a housewife that was like, she has a very large family, and she was like, I get tired of buying stuff in pound packages because we have 11 kids at home and I have to use a lot of pounds. And I said, well, go to them and say you want 5-pound packages of ground pork. And she said, you can do that? I said, well, absolutely, you can do that. And she ordered it like that. And she was like, this is a game changer for me. Now, I would have never thought that, but that was value to her that she can't get at Walmart, and because it's cookie cutter and it has to fit in our package, it has to fit in our box and all that type of thing. So you never know what's going to be valuable to a customer, but you have to have conversations and you have to have discussions, and then you find out what is, and then you say, hey, I can meet that need. And if you meet somebody's need, you have a customer for life, because their needs don't go away. Their wants and their desires change, but their needs, obviously someday she's not going to have 11 kids at home, and that will change her needs, but she'll still be a customer with me because I presented her a solution at a time she needed it, and she'll continue on with me. So building a relationship, expressing to them how that relationship brings value to both parties, and then always look for how do you meet a need, and then be honest with people when you can't meet that need. uh, this is a credibility issue that most people don't understand. You have to be consistent. You have to have honesty with folks and say, hey, I can do this, I can't do this. And that's hard because you're looking at every potential customer as dollar signs. This is going to make my enterprise, my farm, profitable if I can have this many more people. But if you can't meet them, don't try to blow smoke up them, because it's not going to get you a good name in the future.
Yeah, you can't always be a yes man or yes person. Levels of business, some of the most powerful things you can do is say no at different times.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So how's it been working with, you feel like with this restaurant conversation that the value exchange is going to be worth it? Because restaurants obviously have margins too. So
Well, yeah, I already told him. I told him up front. I says, listen, I appreciate the phone call and I am going to pursue this, but I don't put my labor on sale. I I have a value that I need to produce, and I have a scale that I can reasonably do, and I can't go beyond that. So I have to have this to make my operation work. So I says, we'll talk about it, we'll find a way, but I says, I just want you to be upfront. I am not going to be your cheapest, and but I will be a steady supply of a premium product. And he was like, "That's awesome. Thanks for telling me that." Where that goes from here, I don't know. Will it turn into a long-term relationship? I have no idea. But that was my first thing, was I wanted to let him know that, hey, you're buying from me, and he's a little bit of a higher end restaurant uh,
yeah,
that does some specialty stuff, so he can have that higher value. But I told him, I says, if you're going to compare me to Cisco, or whichever entity you want to talk about that's providing you your products right now, I I'm not even going to try to, and I'm not going to waste my time if this conversation needs to become that. I says, because my labor is not on sale, and he respected that. And again, I think that we get a little fearful of telling people that up front, because we don't want to lose a sale. But if you sell everything, and it's um, you lose money on every sale, what's the point of doing it? So
yeah.
you have to have profit in mind, and you have to have costs included in that. And I didn't understand all the costs that were involved in what I was getting into when I mean, I would not suggest to anybody to get into this the way that I did. I just was really pissed off and looking for a way to keep milking cows. And so I did as much out of spite and emotion as I did out of business planning. And but
But is it working? Do you feel like you're in a better place? Is your operation in a better place right now than it was in 2022?
um, I wouldn't say that I'm in a better place financially yet, but I would say that I am in a better place in terms of um,
Well, you have control
I
over the
exactly.
future.
Yes, yes. I know that now. the dairy industry right now is in huge turmoil. The price is horrible. So, I would be struggling today at the prices that everybody's getting for milk. So, what I don't want to do is give anybody unrealistic hope. I tell people when they talk to me about this, I say, if you're having financial trouble in this commercial aspect of traditional agriculture, let's call it, direct to consumer sales is not going to be your golden ticket out of it. You're going to have to work twice as hard, do things you don't know about, make mistakes. But if you're failing forward, you have opportunity. So we are much happier the way that we farm now. We are more fulfilled. We have greater care for our livestock. And not that people didn't care and that I didn't care before, but I just look at everything a lot different. I look at it as, when I'm out there, if somebody showed up right now to look at my farm, one of my customers, am I proud of the way I'm doing this right now? If somebody's looking over my shoulder. And this past summer, when I was moving cattle and doing our rotational grazing on a hayfield, I was walking across that field, and it struck me as I did that I had been over this field for years with a tractor, but I'm walking across it and I'm noticing the different grasses that are growing, and I'm picking up my step-in fence posts and winding up the poly wire, and I just had an immense feeling of satisfaction in doing that I hadn't had when I was driving across it with a tractor and a chopper and putting the silage in bags and all those types of things. Even though I was doing a regenerative style of farming and all that stuff, this was just much more connected. And I looked at everything as this in the totality of it: the cow, the manure paddy, the grass, all those things. And it was just a moment for me where it was like, this is how farming should be. So, we're just, financially, we're squeaking by. I'm not going to be dishonest with anybody and say, hey, it's, this golden panacea. When, if you're selling 75 hogs, that's $75,000 in the scheme of most traditional ag that we're in. That's not enough. So we're selling about $100,000 worth of milk a year. And so, we really need to be up there around $350,000 of net revenue, gross revenue, I should say, to really be comfortable. But we have to build every dollar that's purchased. We have to build that customer base. And that takes time. You don't just walk into that and have that. And, the old traditional saying of it, if your business isn't working by year 3, you're probably going to fail. That was something that I learned when I was in college. Well, you have to really hump to get a customer base of several thousand customers to purchase from you in a farm direct, your farm direct sales. And you probably can't do that in 3 years unless you live in a very, very high density area. And I don't. My county has about 12,000 people in it, so we're in the sticks here.
Hey eco farmers, this is Taylor Henry with Acres U.S.A. I hope you enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoy interviewing these folks. If you're serious about regenerative agriculture, I've got an incredible resource for you. You need to check out the Acres U.S.A. membership and magazine. You farm in the physical world and you deserve a physical printed magazine to match. Since 1971, Acres U.S.A. magazine has been the leading voice in ecological agriculture, delivering the best insights from regenerative farmers, agronomists, and researchers to help you farm profitably without toxic chemicals. Our membership included physical and digital copies of the magazine each month of the year, which has always been a standard for Acres U.S.A., but we wanted to over-deliver on content. When I acquired this business, I was happy to find that we had years of audio files from presentations at our annual EcoAg conference. And guess what? They were all hiding. Well, not anymore. We developed this membership portal that gives you access to the recordings from farmers like Gabe Brown, Gary Zimmer, Joel Salatin, and Mark Shepard. We also include recordings of private events. And finally, if you're like me and you like listening to content, we are now producing a membership-only podcast of each issue of the magazine so you can consume each article while you're out in the field. And to make things even sweeter, you'll get discounts on books, workshops, and events to keep expanding your knowledge. So are you ready to take your farming to the next level? Join today for a ridiculously low price at eco-farming.com or see details in the notes. Do you think if you wouldn't have essentially just cut ties in the commodity system where you didn't really have a way to go back, would you have, like, there's probably a ton of times where you wish you had an off ramp of some sort, but you wouldn't have been able to get to where you are now. I guess the theory I'm saying is, a lot of people want to try to start something. It's difficult to dive headfirst into something when you have the backup plan to go back to. Mm-hmm. And part of it is like this painful reality that you just have to, chop the head off of the thing that, and move on without it and figure out if you have what it takes to make it. So are you thankful with the way that you did things, or do you wish you would have done something that was a little bit more transitional?
No, I'm thankful for the way I did things. I would not have I would not have succeeded if I hadn't had. I mean, the knife is to my throat every day. Yeah. So you have to make it work, and if you don't, it's on you. And so would have I done it differently? If I was a new guy getting started into it, I wouldn't have been in conventional agriculture to start with. I would have been looking at these new. I've always been kind of that return to the roots type guy. So I think that I would have not had the weight. To be real honest with you, the debt level that I had from my commercial time is what holds me back from really succeeding. So I'm focusing on how to get out of debt, and that's a huge that's a different aspect of agriculture than what I was trained in, because debt was the way you made your future in agriculture, in traditional ag. When I went to college in the 90s, we all talked about asset appreciation and asset turnover and how to use dollars to gain scale. And when you get into the direct-to-consumer model, interest is what kills you, and debt is what kills you. So you have to think outside the box. You have to be looking at different ways of scaling that require less debt, not investment, but debt. There's a difference between the two. And most of traditional agriculture, when they say investment, they mean debt. And I think if you're going to make it into direct to consumer, investment is your time, your energy, and whatever limited capital resources you have, invest wholly, and then find a way to have maximum return so that you can generate to the scale that you need to move forward. And that's been, that's what drives me every day, is not just the love of what I have to do, the customers that I have to do, but I have to make the mortgage payment. I have to pay the cow note. I have to pay the tractor off, all those things. And so, yeah, you kind of have to have that knife to your throat mentality, because I also, when I quit commercial farming, I quit taking any government subsidies. I said, I want to have the freedom to make decisions that I'm not hamstrung by, will I get a check for this? So I can do a lot of things because I'm not worried about, does this mess with my ARC payment, or am I going to maximize this next whatever 3-letter initial the next payment's going to be. So it's all me. And some days we succeed, some days we don't, but we keep moving forward.
You want to dive into, like, what's the scale of your operation, and then what were you doing prior? How you describe what led you to having the fallout with the co-op and, getting to the point where you're like, this is not going to work?
Well, 2020 was I've always been very involved in our dairy co-ops, whichever dairy co-op I happen to be selling milk to. And I haven't liked the way the industry has gone in terms of the individual farmer isn't the focus anymore. It's the industry. It's the dairy co-op. Is dairy going to make money? Is the, and I was struggling with that. And then in 2022, the National Milk Producers Federation has had for decades a program called FARM, which is Farmers Assuring Responsible Management. It'd be the equivalent of like beef quality assurance in the beef industry or pork quality assurance. It's it started out pretty benign. Make sure you're watering your calves and the cattle have exercise. And everybody was just kind of like, yeah, whatever, we'll sign it. I don't care. Well, it became very intrusive with the generation of that came out in 2021, 2022, right in there. And I had some serious problems with it, and went to my representative in the co-op, went to my field man, and I says, hey, I just do not agree with so much of what's going on here. And like they say, my spidey senses were going off, but I didn't know what was wrong. I just knew something was wrong. And I had a long conversation one day with my field rep who came out from the co-op who wanted to go over the thing with me. And I had like 5 pages of questions for him, of stuff I just didn't understand why we were being asked, whether it was how much diesel fuel you were using, how often is your vet out at your farm? A lot of these kind of questions. And I thought, man, you're asking a lot of questions I don't think you need to know the answers to. I've been farming for 30 years. Nobody's asked me these before. I don't understand why we have to have them. And they said, well, our customers demand it. And that was, again, another one of the things that my spidey senses went off on. So we went through about a 2.5-hour conversation. He walked around on the farm, said everything looked great, just sign these papers. And I says, I have to think about this. He's like, well, I'll be back in 2 weeks. I said, okay. He comes back and he says, well, did you sign them? And I said, I haven't. Called him by name, and he's a good guy. Got along with him great. I said, these are my issues, and you haven't answered them for me. And I just don't think I can sign this. And went to some other dairy farmers, and they were all having the same feelings. But I couldn't get a consensus of, hey, can we get a group of guys together to kind of say, hey, we got to push back on this. We got to finally say no. And then at that second meeting, I asked the gentleman, I says, when you say our customers are demanding that, I says, what customers? Like the mom and the standard suburban Hope wants to know this stuff or what? And it was, oh no, it's like Nestle and Dannon and Cisco, and it was all these major corporations. And I was like, that's really odd. Why do we think of them as customers? I always thought the customer was the person at the end of the chain. And that was when I really started to delve into what was going on in our marketing system in most of agricultural products. We don't sell to an individual, we sell to an entity. And that entity is some multinational globalist corporation that has, no real concern about anything but the bottom line and how can they make money. And I was like, all these guys want to know is why I'm doing what I'm doing so they can capture some kind of a climate credit or something. And I didn't understand ESG and all those things at that time, but it just dawned on me that our industry was geared towards the industrialization and not the human element had been taken away from it. And we went around and around, and I finally said, I can't sign this. I told my wife, I said, I just can't sign it. She said, what are you going to do? I mean, we're going to go from, $25,000 a month in income from 70 cows to zero if you don't do something. And I don't know. And I didn't handle it real well. I got pretty depressed. I got to a pretty dark spot, but stopped taking care of the cows really well. Just depression that had never been an issue for me just overtook me, and it was about the worst moment of my life. But I knew I couldn't sign it, but I didn't know what I could do otherwise. And everybody I talked to couldn't give me any advice. Most of the advice was, well, just sign the papers, even though you don't mean them. Who cares? And there was just a part of me that was like, that to me is just the ultimate lying. I can't do that. I can't lie to agree to a lie. And had another conversation with the field man, and I says, I don't want to sign this. And he says, that's fine. It's voluntary. And I says, well, great. Finally, it's voluntary. I'm not going to sign it. And he says, well, if you don't sign it, we can't pick up our milk because we've agreed to all of these entities that everybody that sells milk to us has signed this agreement. And I said, why don't you lie about it to them and say everybody signed it? Why can't you do the lying and not me? Oh, no, that's not the way it works. So I just kind of fell apart after that. And I'm not real proud of that, but it's part of the story. Didn't do a good job with the cows, didn't do a good job making quality milk, and got myself kicked out of the co-op. December 11th of 2022 was the last time they picked up milk. And I went into a really dark place then. And just after Christmas, I came in, I had kind of taken care of the cows. I was trying to figure out, do I sell them? Do I not? The bank is after me, you don't have any income coming in. Those were some really tough conversations. Why did you do this? Try to explain that to a lender why you don't have any money is not a fun conversation to have. And I'd been outside, and to be honest, I'd been drinking a little, and came in the house, and my wife met me at the door, and she just lovingly but loudly looked at me and said, you are the guy that always charged hell with a squirt gun. You fought everything. You got to figure out how you're going to fight. You fight for the cows, you fight for the farm, you fight for your family, you fight for me, but you better start fighting. And I took that to heart. And so I started, had a good conversation with the banker and said, I got to sell some cows to pay this bill. That's the only thing I have left. And so we did that. We started to take care of some of those issues. Still no income, still no real plan. So then I just started thinking about, how can I do?
What were you doing with the milk?
I just was dumping it. I didn't have anything else to do. And my production setup was such that I wasn't milking as many cows about that time as normal. So I wasn't losing the milk from 70 cows. I had a lot that were about to freshen and such. And so I didn't have any options, and I hadn't thought about direct to consumer or anything. So got some of the stress that was going on then eliminated. And then I was able to kind of start to think clearly, put the cork back in the bottle and all those things that needed to happen. And I said, okay, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for me. I wasn't fighting against anything. I was fighting for my family. So it wasn't a fight against something out there, and I wasn't going to dismantle the system, or I was like, be realistic, just fight for your family. Figure out how you can have something that nobody can take away from you. And I said, okay, started looking at some things, met some folks online, and the light bulb went off. We'll just start selling your milk to people. Oh, all right. Well, how do I do that? It had nobody was out there telling me how to do it. It was just an idea I had. So I started looking into all the different things. Okay, what's a jug cost? What most people wanted in glass bottles. How much do glass bottles cost? And okay, well, I've got this 1,000-gallon bulk tank. How am I going to sell 1,000 gallons of milk? Well, you're probably not. All right, let's let's tone it down. Let's figure out what do we need to sell a week so that we can survive. And we came up with that number, and we're like, okay. And I was like, well, that won't work with my bulk tank. And so we started thinking about smaller bulk tanks, which is just, not the way I was trained to think.
Right.
And we kept moving forward with the idea that Memorial Day weekend of May of 2023, we would start selling milk. We had a tornado come through the first part of May that set us back about 2 months because all of our buildings got destroyed. And we we had some real setbacks from that. But in the end, it worked out pretty good because it kind of took away my options. I have no shop left. I have no machine bar buildings. A bunch of my equipment got destroyed. So we used that insurance money that we collected to pay down some more debt, buy back some necessary equipment, bought a smaller bulk tank. And July of 2023, we started selling direct to consumers with buildings still in tatters and roofs off of the freestall barn and all those things. And you're thinking, this is not that American Gothic picture that you want people to come to your farm and buy anything from, but it was what we had, and we went with it. And all of our fences got destroyed. We had this great plan of rotational grazing and all that stuff. I couldn't let the cows out of the barn because there was so many holes in the fence, and I was just trying to keep them, together. And so I would let them out during the day, and they would kind of free roam, and I'd put them back in at night so that I'd at least know where they were the next morning. And I mean, it was comical as I look back on it. There was some tears shed. There was some like, oh God, why me? All those things. But out of that adversity, we just started selling, and we had to. We didn't have any money. And those 3 hogs that we started out with were finally starting to farrow. And, some people came around and said, what are them feral hogs doing running around your farm? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to get the fence built to keep them in because the building that I had them butted up to was gone, and I mean, just everything that you can imagine that could be thrown at you was kind of all at the same time thrown at me. But my wife stayed strong. She really pushed the marketing side of things. I mean, we're a team. It's not me doing all this. She does so much of the work. And we just started, and we realized really fast our big plan wasn't going to work. And we had to narrow it down to, okay, this is how much labor we have. How can we just do this? And started selling the milk from 3 cows. And by the fall, we were up to selling the milk from 8 cows. And by the next spring, we were up to about 12 cows. And we hover between 8 and 12 cows now that we're selling the milk from. We get $13 a gallon for it in jugs. Noticing as I was making my plan, I saw, hey, we've got to sell. We can't sell a commodity. We have to sell a premium product. So we delved into the A2 milk fad that I think is legitimate, and went to we're not purely grass fed. We do feed our cattle some grain, but we're grass based and non-GMO. Like I said, I'm not certified organic, but I haven't sprayed anything on the farm since 2022, and we just started moving into those premium marketplaces where we could get people to pay for this, and had great success. But we've kind of stalled out, and we're trying to figure out how to make that next level that we need to go to.
Now you're at a point where you need to scale.
We need to replicate. I said we need. So what I learned from that was my biggest issue is finding customers. Mm-hmm. You've got to and with milk, you have to find a customer every day. You can't store it. You can't put it off for a week. You've got to find a customer every day. So we've got between, depending on the week, usually right around 80 families that are buying milk from us, and then they buy other products as they have need. We could probably handle. We need to get up to around 200 families buying from us. Our average customer spends about about $28 a week with us. That's an average number. So we've been hovering right around that $6,000 a month in sales for quite a while, and we really need to be up around 13,000 to really make this thing rock.
Hey all, here is a quick note from one of our sponsors, American Farmland Trust, who leads the conservation agriculture movement, focusing on the land, the practices used on that land, and the farmers and ranchers who steward the land. Working from kitchen tables to the halls of Congress, AFT's mission is to keep farms and ranches thriving. Since its founding in 1980 as a membership-based organization, AFT has helped permanently protect over 8 million acres of agricultural land, advance regenerative farming practices on millions of acres, and supported thousands of farm families. Find technical resources, network opportunities, and more at farmland.org. What do you think? What's the plan on how to get there?
So after the first of the year, before the first of the year, we were looking at things, and we were doing a deep dive into why did we stall? And what I found was we had some of our locations, so what we do is we deliver milk. People can come to the farm and pick up milk. About 30% of our sales are from direct people coming to the farm and picking up their milk. And the rest of our sales is from our drop-off locations where we go, and 4 days a week we're on the road for 3 to 5 hours delivering milk to different locations. And people come to that location. They can pre-buy on our website, or they can pay us cash when they get there. And we were just wondering, why aren't we? Our customer turnover was getting to be greater. We weren't getting new customers and keeping them, and we were asking a lot of questions about what that was. And we started asking our customers, what's going on? We want to be, did we change something? Are you unhappy with our product, unhappy with the service? What's going on? Well, what we found out was at one of our bigger locations, the day that we were delivering just wasn't working. So I was like, okay, so we were delivering down into North Liberty, which is a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri, which is about an hour and 45-minute drive for us. We were delivering down there since we began there on a Saturday morning. We thought, oh, everybody will be here on a Saturday morning, and that doesn't conflict with work and all those types of things. Well, what we found out was everybody went away on the weekend, and that was a novel idea for a dairy farmer, because I don't go away anywhere. So I didn't think about, hey, people have a life that they want to go places. So we switched after the first of the year. We had 2 of our customers down there that asked, hey, what about you drop off at our homes on a weekday, and then you put a cooler there, people prepay for it, and they can pick it up. And we thought, that's not going to work. But you got to take those things and you got to, marinate them and think about them. And so we did. And we said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So we switched on January 12th was our first day of switching. And we knew we'd take a little bit of a hit in our sales, and we did. But as of this last weekend, we've actually doubled our sales in that location in 5 weeks.
Awesome.
So it was like, oh, it's like I didn't even think about that. But one of our customers kind of planted that seed, and we moved forward from there. So again, it's finding that convenience, and it's our wheat. We finally got the right screens in our old clipper fanning mill to get it cleaned, so that it's up to the specs that we want. And we've started selling that, and we're finding people that are very receptive to that now. So again, it's that diversification within the system that's increased our sales, and we're going to probably have our best month. I haven't done the closeout on January book yet, but we'll have our best month we've had in 9 months in January. So we feel a little optimism about that. It's like, oh, and you can't beat yourself up and go, why didn't I think of this sooner, or whatever, because you just can't think of everything. But when the opportunities present themselves, if you can move ahead then you're doing a good thing.
Good for you. That's pretty amazing. what makes you guys not want? Why don't you have? So you have raw dairy, pork. What makes you not have beef? Or you have chicken as well, but
Yeah. To be honest with you, we do a little bit of beef, but we're really going for those heifers to grow the herd and to cash flow. Calves are worth a
yeah.
lot right now, so hey, I've got this.
Okay.
I got this. I sold 4 bull calves this summer, and I averaged like $1,100 a piece for them. I was
Yeah.
like, I need the money now, not in 2 years. And beef is also one of them things that we have found is crowded in our area.
Yeah.
So uh, that's a market that I'm not good at, and I thought it it does kind of fit in, but and then my acres, the way I'm set up, um, I'm moving my cows through at a pretty good clip to get a high quality grass, and I want it to rebuild and give it time for that uh, better energy, better protein content. So I'm not following up with other species behind them, managing my grass a little bit different than you would if you were raising beef.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Which is, stay in your lane of what you feel comfortable with is an
Right.
important thing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so how would you describe your demographic of customers? Who are the people that are buying from you?
Well, we've got as much diversity. I really thought we would be shooting for high income people, and we do certainly have some higher income folks that buy from us. But it's really, if I was going to say what is our main mom that's buying from us, and it's families, but just talking about the mom, it's usually a mom with younger children, uh, 3 to 5 kids, looking for nutritious food that fills them up, that gives them value and health. And uh, I would say the average income. We did this about 6 months ago. We kind of sent out a little questionnaire to our customers. The average person is probably making between $55,000 and $60,000, so not very wealthy people. And we certainly have people that are up in the higher six figures that are buying from us as well. But uh, the average age is something around that mid 30s um, person. Um, but one of the common denominators is stay at home mom. She wants to just cook good food for her
Yeah.
family, and she has time to do that. And so convenience is not her thing, but quality and value is. Um, and we have such a wide and a diverse um, group of customers. We This past Monday we went down to North Liberty. We had a new customer, and she is an immigrant from Zambia, and little country in Africa. And she just found us by searching. Or we're on rawmilk.com, which is the Weston A. Price uh, system, and that's where she found us. And she said, all of my food I ever ate when I grew up in Zambia was fresh because we don't really have refrigeration. And I just miss having fresh food. So it was a really interesting conversation that my wife had with her. So we have the wide range, some single dads who just want to have good food for their families. Um, so that's kind of we're not certainly not in a wealthy uh, demographic, but it is kind of tends towards stay-at-home moms or families who want to have quality, nutritious food. And we hear all kinds of stories, but when we first started, we had a lot of people who were concerned about health, and now we just have a lot of people who are concerned about nutrition and localism. That's really what's driving it.
Yeah. What do you think as far as rural America has shrunk for a long time? I'm kind of hoping we're on a little bit of a turn back in some ways with people wanting to, move back to rural areas. What sort of impact from a community standpoint and then your family or your generational type farm, do you think making this switch and doing this sort of agriculture and direct to consumer marketing, if we were able to replicate this over, you know, thousands and thousands of farms, like what would that do to the rural economy?
Well, it would bring back realism to it. It wouldn't be fake. I think one of the things that we're finding out as we look through the economy in general right now is there's just a lot of stuff that's just fraud that you're just looking at it and going, was any of this really real? And when you get back to the land and you get back to livestock, uh, you know, green grass, bright sunlight, and ample moisture, that's real. And as people are getting tired of the fake, and so they want that real stuff, and they don't have any trust in the system anymore. So rural America will rebuild because we have a system of trust, we have a system of authenticity. It's real, and as people come together around that, you find then that they value your labor, they value your participation, they value community, and those things are all going to end up being, um, you know, uh, attractive to folks who are not normally in our rural communities, and they're going to find these ways in. They're not concerned about government payments or all the things, or even they have an idea about grass fed, they have an idea about organic, but they're like, I just want to put my hands in the dirt, and I want to have something that I can know is real and I can defend and I can participate in, and that is what's going to allow for expansion in rural America. So for those of us that are already there, we have to find ways to welcome them and to build trust with them, because they, as much as we like to think about our farming as a necessary uh, way of life for so many people and a necessary part of our economy, there's a lot of folks out there who don't trust us, and I've seen that firsthand as I've interacted with these consumers. They just, well, I heard this, I heard that, and you have to be able to get out there and debunk the myths, but then also be honest with, yeah, that's really happening. I'm not going to lie to you. That's, there are some
What's
things.
something that what's like an example of something that makes consumers not trust farmers?
Well, so we had a customer reach out to us 2 weeks ago about our wheat, and she asked me, she says, "You say it's organic. What do you mean by organic?" And I says, "Well, we don't use commercial fertilizer, and I don't use any uh, herbicides or pesticides, and my seed is heritage seed that I know the where the seed stock came from. It's not been sprayed there either, and my land is organic. I have in the past. I'm always honest with people. In 2021, yeah, we sprayed chemicals on it. We haven't sprayed any chemicals on it since then." Um, so she was like, "So you don't like do something modified organic?" And I said, "Well, I don't understand what modified organic is. Can you explain that to me?" And she said, "Well, I was buying my wheat from a farmer, and I don't know who it was, and I don't know where it was, but it was getting shipped to her." And she said, "I found out that he sprays all of his wheat in the spring at green up," he said. And I says, "Okay." She says, "Well, that doesn't seem like it's organic to me." And I says, "Well, that wouldn't meet the traditional definition of organic." But she was like, so I just want to know, what do you mean by the words that you're using?" And I says, "Well, when I say I don't spray anything, I don't spray anything." And I says, we use some biologicals, we use some other things, but we don't use any pesticides, herbicides, commercial fertilizer. And she was like, "How can I guarantee that?" And I said, "Well, you can come out to the farm and watch me anytime you want. I am an open book." And she says, "Oh, really?" I says, "Yeah." She says, "You don't mind if there's people watching you?" I says, "No." I says, "Everything I do," I says, "it's the right people." I says, "My customers are more than welcome to come and see what I'm doing. And good, bad, or ugly, you're going to see it." And so she had that experience with a person who presented themselves to be organic. And again, I don't know who it was or where it was or anything like that. But then she found out they were spraying stuff on it, some kind of a herbicide. And I says, well, I'm sorry, ma'am, that you had that experience. But that down the road, now she wants to verify with me everything that I'm doing. And that just takes a level of trust and a level of commitment, to be honest. And I think that's what we need in our industry, is just some honesty. Hey, yeah, if you are spraying, say you're spraying. It's okay. It's I'm not going to sit here and beat you up for doing it. I understand the reason why. But then don't degrade, don't demean the other guy who's doing it right by your lie.
The journey of trying to eat healthier foods it can be a very complicated one. Sometimes the complication is just as simple as, where do you find the right foods? And one of the things that is incredible about Azure is that they've taken that complexity and really simplified it. Everything you get from Azure is, clean food. Just the simplicity of it, to have that is amazing.
For more information, visit azurestandard.com.
I always think too, like that you essentially have a soundboard with your customer base, and a lot of those questions are good things, to put on a website to answer them before people even ask. Because then, a lot of people might not even have that question, but if they see it and they can read it and understand it, that's a way of communication to the consumer that where you like solve some of these consistent questions. The FAQ section on a website, especially for this sort of industry, is really important, because I think it cuts down on those back and forth interactions that, I talk to people a lot that they struggle with the back and forth. Like someone I spoke with a couple weeks ago at a conference, so like all my customers text me, and I end up having the same exact conversation over and over again. Like, what should I do about that? And I'm like, well, I would pick out the consistent questions that they're asking and then throw it on a document or on your website. And, you can start pushing people that way. But it's also really beneficial to have those conversations with the customers too, to understand it. But there is a point of when you're scaling or getting a little bit bigger in business, like you can't be texting people, 20 hours in the day either.
Right.
So there's the middle ground. But I think if people just have their they have the questions of their answers answered before they maybe even know it, or they can get through it. And then the questions that come to you are a little bit more higher level and you're closer to a sale than, the back and forth that takes place.
Yep.
So do you guys get that? Do you get a lot of email? Are you handling like through email? Or are you handling it through people texting you? How do you handle the communication?
Text, email, phone calls, and then of course Facebook Messenger, Twitter, direct DMs, all those things kind of are the avenues of communication today. And to your point about answering questions, that's what most of my social media is about, is, hey, this is what we're doing today. Gives them an idea of what we're doing. And then they can ask a question informed about that. I've kind of funneled them into a position where you can ask me a question about what I'm talking about today. And if you can do that on a Facebook post, one of the things that I have found, I agree with you 100% about that FAQ page and about, whether, news, whatever you want to call it. But one of the things that I have found is people don't click through websites. We think because we're in it, we're like, oh, we check out somebody's website, another farm or whatever, and you're kind of online stalking, another business or whatever. You read all that stuff, but the vast majority of your consumer is like, okay, I can get something here. I'll click on that, and then after the fact, or just before they hit the buy button, oh, I'm gonna text them real quick. I'm gonna shoot them this email, this DM, whatever it is, and you're kind of in this narrow window to get to them. But we have been amazed at how many people just, that's on our website. You could look here, you in a text, then you're texting them the link, read it here. This is the answer. And so it's a faster way, but you're still involved in that texting. One of the things that prevents us from scaling on the production side is, for me, as an example, 40% of my time is spent in production. The rest of my time is spent in marketing, distribution, deliveries, and customer interactions. So we've said all along, if our land base, we could get up to about 20 cows and about 20 sows, and that would probably max out what we can do. But we couldn't do any more labor than that because of how much time we have to spend with customers on a daily basis, new customers, or just fulfilling orders. That's something that I didn't think about, was how much time does it take to bottle milk in a day? Okay, I'm going to deliver milk 3 days a week. Oh, I'm going to spend 20 hours a week on the road or delivering. That takes away from, farming time. So you have to put all of that stuff in the hopper and think about, I've only got so many hours in a day. How am I going to get it all done and get it out to the people? So you have to. So when you talk about scale, in agriculture we always think about 100 animals, or this many animal units on this, or this many acres. Okay, I have trained myself to think about scale in terms of how many customers can I take care of, and how can I fulfill their demands. And when you start to put in people aren't cattle. You can't manage them and say, hey, I'm going to do this at this time and get them in a routine. I'm amazed at how many people order from us at midnight, on our website, because that's when mom has some downtime and she can say, oh, I can do this right now. So, so you have to think in scale in terms of customers, not in terms of production.
Yeah. What has your production, what have you noticed since you've cut all the chemicals out and all the additional fertilizer and the crutches that you used to have? Like, what does your production look like?
Well, one other thing that we've cut out of our formulations and our rations for our livestock, because again, we were looking at premium things and finding ways to get into niche markets. We don't feed any soybean meal to anything on the farm. A lot of people were very concerned about phytoestrogens in different food products. So that's one of the things that we eliminated. So I was running in that 75 pounds of milk production per cow per day. And, now I'm down around 25 pounds, but my cows are getting about 10 pounds of ground ear corn a day, no supplemental proteins. And then my best quality hay I can put up this time of year. My production does go up, when new grass comes on, I get a little better protein out of it. But, and I've got dairy farmer friends who just shake their head at me. And there's times I sit there and go, man, what am I doing? I used to get this and now I'm getting this, but I'm getting significantly more for every pound of milk that I'm selling. So my actual income per cow is about 3 times what it was before I made this switch. So it's
kind
income
of a wash.
yeah. So my income is much better. My health of my animals is much better. I'm just not pushing them the same way. I'm getting more longevity out of cows. In terms of crop production, my hay yields haven't really changed since I did this. We're in an area here. We're not. I'm 3 counties south, or 2 counties south of the Iowa border where I'm at, but I'm not in real good dirt. So our county average is about 130, 135 bushels, I think, to the acre for corn right around here, 32, 33 bushels to the acre for soybeans. My corn has still been holding in there in that right around 95 to 105 bushels to the acre as organic. And so I've taken a little bit of a yield hit, but I've also, this year I'm integrating more of Jason Mock's kind of strip tillage model, experimenting with some things with some interseedings and that, because I want to be able to pasture more of those acres. And so, I'm excited about some changes that I'm making this year. Looking forward to that. We'll see how that improves yields. My wheat yields have decreased, but I've gone away from those more modern hybrids to heritage wheats. So, we're running about 30 this year. We ran 37 bushels of the acre on our wheat. But I'm selling it for, we sell 25 pounds of it for $50. So, we are more than making up for yield, and our people are loving the quality of it. I love eating it. This is our first year of actually having it in a wide, it kind of on the farm in a bulk form. And boy, I love eating the bread. It's just my daughter has celiac disease, and she could never eat bread. And we always thought it was a gluten intolerance. She can eat our stuff all day long. She gets it all the time, and she's making pizza dough out of it. And here a couple of weeks ago, she took some of our milk and she made her own mozzarella cheese. We don't sell cheese, mozzarella cheese. She had tomatoes that she had grown in her garden. She used our flour to make her crust, and she used our pork to as the sausage. 100% homemade. I mean, everything about it was made by somebody with the last name of Berdick, and that's really cool. You don't, what's that worth? That gives you so much self-worth. And we have other customers that are doing the same thing, and they're just ecstatic about that. Not just because of the health of it, but it's like everything I'm eating, I participated in growing and purchasing. And that's a really cool thing that you don't get in the industrial model of agriculture.
Have you guys tossed around the idea of doing like events out there? I mean, I could see a little pizza night, just making those pizzas and charging a good amount for them.
We have, and we were going to do one this summer. This summer was kind of we'd been on this trajectory of always increasing sales until last April, and then last summer was like a financial dry gulch for us. It was just like, what did we do wrong? Learned some things. It was just I really think that just the general economy in this area was really tough this summer, and people just cut back on their purchases. And we saw an increase in customers coming back in the fall. We also saw an increase in the amount of people that were going on vacation. That was again that kind of drew down our customer supply. So this summer was kind of difficult. We had planned a night at the farm, but we just couldn't financially pull it off, to be really honest with you. You have a lot of things pulling on you every day. So,
yeah.
I'm just being honest, you have all these great ideas, but you have to find a way to fund them too. And so we've got, I'd have to look at my calendar, but I think in May of this year, we are having our first of the year people come out and visit the farm, kind of a larger thing. We're going to have some pork that we're going to roast and different things, and some homemade ice cream that we're going to make with our milk, and just a farm tour, get to know your farmer night and or afternoon, I should say. And so we're looking at those things, getting people out. Again, having that traffic, store traffic, you don't think about that on the farm because we're also isolated. We like, who's pulling up the driveway now?
Yeah.
I mean, I about have to put a speed bump in the driveway for the people that are coming in and out of here some days. So you got to have that store traffic. You got to bring people in. You got to be an open book, and you got to be honest and transparent. And then don't try to meet everybody's needs. So many of our customers are other farmers that I'm talking to, and young people that I'm talking to about this are like, I want to do this and this and this. And I'm like, man, you're going to be spread too thin. Do what you do well, and just focus on that.
This year's 50th annual Acres U.S.A. EcoA conference was one for the record books, and now you can relive many of the inspiring moments. The 2025 EcoAg recordings are now available for purchase, featuring all keynotes, breakout sessions, and other expert presentations from the nation's leading ecological ag thinkers and practitioners, such as Gabe Brown, Joel Salatin, John Kemp, Nation Winters, and Dr. Don Huber, and many more. Whether you're a farmer, rancher, educator, or ag professional, these recordings put the best of sustainable agriculture at your fingertips, so you can learn at your own pace, revisit ideas, and take your operation to the next level. Don't miss out. Head to our conference.acresusa.com and get your complete set of the 2025 EcoEgg recordings today. Your soil, your farm, and your future will thank you. Yeah, no question. What is your sales pitch to, you talk about a dairy farmer making the transition here. I think you're pretty unique in that. Dairy farming is a tough place to be right now. And I could imagine, almost more than probably commodities in some ways, commodity crops, where it's either get bigger or get out. And you were right on that. You're on that lower edge that was borderline anyways, where someone would probably walk in and say, you're going to have to, double, triple this operation to make it work. Mm-hmm. What is some of the things that you would tell either a new person get into it or an existing dairy farmer that, how do we have more operations like yours, make the transition?
Well, first off, take your passion that you have for making milk and share that with the people around you. If you're passionate about making milk, that's going to be contagious to your customers. And if you're looking at this as a get rich quick scheme, it won't be. It's going to be just as hard work. You're not going to work less. You're going to have less cows because you just can't handle the volume without a major investment in some type of automation. So we get our jugs through Uline. It's not rocket science and it's not a trade secret. We make our own labels here on the farm and stick on them to meet the state requirements that are needed for labeling. And we've got a stainless steel tube that's on the end of our bulk tank, and we hand fill every jug. So there's no automation in it. It takes a lot of time, but we have a passion about it for people. And so if you're going to make the transition from a commodity producer to a direct-to-consumer sales, the first thing is you got to have a desire to be around people. And so start there. If you're not a people, and that doesn't mean you have to like people and be cheery and have the best online presence. It just means that the folks that come know that you're welcoming them to them, and that you're willing to meet their needs and you're concerned about them. We've been invited to, birthday parties and weddings and funerals. And last night we got done delivering at one location. A family that's been buying from us for about a year and a half said, we'd like to go out to dinner with you. And so we met at a restaurant halfway between the delivery location and our farm. And we had about an hour and a half conversation last night, got to know them better. They bought their food. We bought our food, and we just sat down and broke bread and shared some commonality and some thoughts. And they were just appreciative of our products. So that's the very first thing. You have to think in terms of, how do I have customers, not and how do I produce milk? It's important. It's the foundation of what you do, but it's secondary to how do you generate income. And you generate income by being involved with that consumer on a weekly basis, and you're going to get to know them. And then you have to be consistent. And that's probably the easiest part for a dairy farmer, because, we're out there twice a day, every day, 12 hours apart, doing the same thing. So you're not thinking about how do I fit this into my schedule? You're used to that consistency. That's one of the biggest things that I see in the direct to consumer. It's not that you can't sell out of things, but are you consistent? Do those people know that you're going to be there in 6 months, in a year? And then you just got to know you've got to build a client base. You don't have a ready-made market. There's not somebody you can call and say, will you take my extra 500 gallons of milk today? State laws do affect that to some extent, so you have to look into those. But if you can find a way to be connected to an individual consumer, and you can scale that over 500, 600, 700, or 1,000 people, you can make your farm operate. It's not going to be glamorous. It's not going to be the newest and the greatest, but it's going to be fulfilling, and it's going to be something that you can replicate. And I wish I had done it 15 years earlier. I think my boys would have been much more inclined to come back to the farm rather than the rat race of the industrial, because you're just constantly pushing to be, to fight for the next day in that. And now you're just, I just love it much more. I have a new love for farming because of what we're doing right now.
So, for someone who say they're in Wisconsin, where I'm at, selling raw milk is illegal technically.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's ways around it, but
Mm-hmm.
what have you learned from your system right now that if you were still stuck to sell milk to a co-op or something, do you think, some of the things that going this route that they've forced you to do from your production side of things, do you feel like you could have made it now in an easier way, or could you have been more profitable selling to the commodity lane by doing like it's interesting to say, like, you haven't sprayed anything on your hay fields forever, like, well, that's a decent cost that I think a lot of people probably just do without thinking. What would you tell those guys?
If you're in the conventional avenue, cost savings alone are not going to make you profitable where we're at now. And the newest production model, of how many pounds of milk that you may or may not be making, how fast how low your cull rate is, how good your heifer retentions are, and your breeding, all those things. You really have to be involved in your industry and find a way to increase income. January milk was basically, they got paid what I got paid in 1992 when I started milking cows. In 1992, I had a 20,000 pound rolling herd average. It was good. It was better than the average then, but even today, that's not really low. It's not quite as respectable, but it's not low. And we were making money. My dad and I were making money in the 90s. Well, at $14 milk at 20,000 pounds, you're not making money today. Cost of land is too high. Cost of inputs is too high. It doesn't matter how much you cut costs. You have to find a way. And as people in agriculture, we have to start to say, we demand more of the consumer dollar. We just have to. And it's going to happen one way or the other. The beef producer, the cow calf guy, is now commanding more of the consumer dollar. But how many guys did we lose to get there? And our industry,
we're still losing them because the price is so good.
Right? Yeah. So infrastructure, those changes. We have to find a way to get income back into agriculture that's not through taxpayer transfers. It has to come voluntarily through the consumer to the farmer. And we can love it all day long, but we have to make money. I mean, I was milking cows in 2009 when we got $8 a hundred for our milk, and I was wondering, how am I even going to pay the electric bill this month? And and we're here 2026, and we're asking the same questions. So we're going to have to start to talk about the makeup of our industry. Do we want small farms? Do we want family-run, family labor operations? Or are we going to just industrialize this thing? I can remember back in the mid 90s, I was talking to my dad one day. We were doing chores, and I said to him, do you think the whole hog industry, so it was late 90s, the whole hog industry was contracting and all the things that were happening there. And I asked my dad, I said, do you think this will ever happen in dairy farming? And he says, no, it can't. He says, we got to have land. We got to have forages, and that's going to, and we've overcome all that stuff. We've changed the way we feed cattle, and trucking has become much easier just in my career. And so we're going to have to stop just going around the edges and finding ways to make cost savings. We're going to have to get in there and say, we demand more of the consumer dollar at the farm gate. And that's going to take involvement. That's going to take out of the box thinking, and that's going to take some pain in the middleman sector, that they're they're not willing to give up right now.
So why, one thing interesting with the cattle markets is you have, obviously the cattle markets are high. The theory is because general population is down. But then you also, on the dairy side, you have the cull markets being the highest they've ever been. But why isn't milk following with it? Like, is it just because we have such enormous operations producing the majority of the milk that the price, like you'd think there's less dairy cows probably in supply as well, but what has kept that price down, where like the protein and the meat side, besides like the alternative market forces of people going, say, carnivore or something? It's interesting that the milk prices have lagged behind all that, but like you can sell your old cow for the best price that a dairy farmer's probably ever sold it for. But what's holding those milk prices down?
Well, my opinion here, and you always get my unfiltered opinion. So we don't have a true market in the dairy industry, and we haven't for a number of years. And part of that was in the early 2000s, as the farms got larger and we saw consolidation in our milk co-ops and in our processors, they began to make side deals with large farms. And there's a scheme out there called, it's got lots of different names, but one of the names is cost plus pricing. So they go to a large farm that's 5 to 10,000 cows, usually much large. 1,000 cow dairies usually don't get this deal. 500 cow dairies certainly don't, and 50 cow dairies don't even get mentioned. But these large farms then are guaranteed a profit for their milk. It may not be, huge, but they are not operating negatively. And so you have roughly 6 to 7 million cows that are involved in that pricing scheme. That is a guaranteed profit through the volume that they give to the processor.
Yeah,
And
we'll give you a penny if you can get a million pennies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so their margin may be low, but their volume is so high that they can make up for that. And then you have the other 2 million cows that are kept on, those 7 million cows are kept on something like, I don't know, 2,000 or 2,200 of the dairy farms. And the other 26,000 dairy farmers are all milking less cows, and they are not given that opportunity. So they're trying to shrink the supply by driving those small farmers out. Back in the day, when I first started, my dad was on a small dairy co-op. Not every, but the majority of the small co-ops, or majority of the co-ops, had what they called a balancing plant. So they would get in the milk and they would have their fluid market, which was your highest price market, your class 2, your sour creams and cottage cheeses and those markets, and a cheese market. But they had the butter plant that they kept so that they could balance for the spring flush or different anomalies, holidays. They could run through the butter plant. And the balance plant was always thought of as the lowest cost, or the lowest profitable milk that was sold from the farm, but that was spread across everybody. Well, my theory is now the balance plant is now the small farm. So they're sitting there and they're going like, we're going to keep these big farms because they're part of our industrial base. They're part of the system that we need so that we can keep all these fluid milk and higher class production models going. But then they use the smaller farms, and they're now the balance. So they're trying to drive them out. They're saying we have too much milk. We're just going to run them out because they'll leave because they aren't making any money, and they're not, and that's why they're leaving right now. That's my theory on what's going on. So we don't have a true market. Butter got beat up on the CME in December on like 2 traded loads of milk. It's like, how can such a minuscule amount of product move an entire nation's supply? But I had a dairy co-op manager once told me, he said, every ounce of milk is is priced by the last jug that's sold. So the last jug is the least cost, and it's the one you're trying to get out the door at the end, and you'll discount it at whatever to get it gone. And that last jug is what prices all of the other milk. And so that's what's going on in the dairy industry right now. So we have to stand up and we have to say, hey, we have a federal milk marketing order system. Everybody's supposed to be getting paid the same for our milk. We don't have any, true cash discovery left in this system. And I would love to see a group of farmers stand up and say, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We got to have open and honest markets. And that's what we're talking about. We talk about the big four packers and all these things. We don't have true price discovery, but how do we get it back? And that's the question that we really need to start to talk about.
Well, that was well put. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time too. I know you're a busy guy and you have lots of other things you need to do. Make sure you check out nourishingfamilyfarm.com is JR's website. JR Cow Farmer on X. They have Facebook pages with Nourishing Family Farm. Make sure to give those guys support. JR, one last thing we talked about before we were recording, but what's the number one book that you always go back to?
Right here. This is from Acres U.S.A. I've had it since, I don't know, probably for 8 or 10 years. Use it all the time. It's just a good refresher. Really appreciate Paul. He's obviously gone, but excellent resource for what I'm trying to do. So, we use a lot of their holistic remedies for different disease that we might encounter.
Yeah, and that one's the alternative treatment of ruminant animals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And we use a lot of Dr. Paul's products too here on the farm. So give them out a good plug too, because they're excellent products for metabolic issues, or I just use their fresh cow boluses on every cow. This is just a standard treatment I do just as a preventative.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we appreciate your time. Anywhere else you want people to head to or places they can find you?
Nope. Those are the main places, and really appreciate Taylor, what you've done with Acres U.S.A. and excited to see what's going to happen with that as we go forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
All right. That wraps up this episode of the podcast. Thanks for tuning in and being part of a growing community committed to soil health, land stewardship, and ecological agriculture. Find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, and all other trusted podcast platforms. Give us a follow, give us a like. Acres U.S.A. is North America's oldest publisher on production scale organic and regenerative farming. For more than 50 years, our mission has been to help farmers, ranchers, and market gardeners grow food profitably, regeneratively, and with nature in mind. A big thank you to our podcast sponsors, Azure Standard and American Farmland Trust, for supporting these conversations and helping us to spread the information and message of ecological farming. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who cares about the future of farming. We'll see you next time on the Acres USA podcast.